But you know it's social media, what you get, what you did, what you
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Boxing Elbows. And in today's episode, I'll be recapping Knicks versus Spurs game four. I'll be talking about, game five and what to look for. And I'll be debuting two new segments that I will, hopefully they work out. And before I talk about anything, I just have to, get up. That is what OG Anunoby was doing all game. He was switching that bitch. Every shot he freaking took was made. Even the tip in where it looked like he might not have gotten enough on that ball, he definitely did. And he won us the game, and he possibly won us the damn series. And we'll just get straight into it. So the Knicks were down 29 in the second quarter. At some point, the score was like 72 to 40, 71 to 42. And the Knicks just looked dead in the water. And, Karl Anthony Towns picked up two fouls in the first minute and a half of the game. And I was like, oh boy, here we go again. Now, granted, some of those calls were phantom calls, like the first foul on De'Aaron Fox. I don't really think he even like touched him, but they called it because Karl Anthony Towns wasn't in legal guarding position anyway. And so, yeah, Towns picked up two early fouls that threw off the momentum for the Knicks for the rest of the game. The rotations weren't as clean. They were allowing open threes. Mitchell Robinson on offense, it was basically a 5v4 because even on his normal, offensive rebounds and putbacks, he wasn't that effective. And the Spurs hit a record 14 threes in the first half. They went 14 for 26, around 65 to 70%. And that's just ridiculous. And obviously, as a fan, and anybody who watches ball, that they're not going to shoot 60% the whole game. That's just, you can't ask a team to do that. And we all knew they were going to cool off, but we all thought that the Knicks looked that they were going to make a run, but they dug themselves too much of a hole to come back. And I was even telling my friend that when the Knicks were down like 25 or at some point in the third they were down like 25 or 22, and you could see the momentum starting to shift, and he was going to put $5 into the game, to bet on the Knicks, and he probably would have won like $70 or something like that. And I told him, nah, you should wait till the next game to bet because the Knicks just dug themselves too much a hole. And it was just unrealistic for, a fan to really think that they could, end up winning the game. We all knew they would make it interesting towards the end. 29-point lead is, a lot, but in today's NBA with threes and with teams, wanting to jack up threes, we knew that that wasn't going to last the entire game. I honestly thought the Knicks were probably going to lose around like 16 to 15 points by the end. I thought that was going to be the final score. But the fact that they cut it to that in the third quarter, I just kind of knew they were going to win because they were down worse. They were down 22 in the fourth quarter against Cleveland. And I just knew that this was possible. And I was watching the game with my dad on the TV, and once they fell down like 25 26 in the first half and they were down 27 at the half, my dad fell asleep. It just looked like every time the Knicks made a little like 5-0 6-0 run, the Spurs would just hit a cash three on the other end, and they just made it look effortless. And so I was like, maybe the Knicks can't handle the pressure of the Garden. I was like getting concerned. I was like, okay, you're playing in Madison Square Garden and you're down 29 to the Spurs and you just lost the previous game. Like, we're really going to come into the series and, you don't win a game at Madison Square Garden. Like, what the heck? And so I went into my room and I turned on, or my computer was already on. Sometimes I like to watch the game on my computers, even though it's a little delayed to the TV. So I don't really like to do that, especially when my dad is, watching on the TV, because then he'll scream at something and I'll have to watch the play, and like 5 seconds later, it happens on my computer. So I just decided to watch the rest of the game on my computer because I knew it was the Knicks were gonna make a run, but it wasn't worth waking up my dad and he has to go to work the next morning and he has to go to sleep. So I was like, okay. And the Knicks cut it to 15 in their quarter, as I said before, and then in the fourth they cut it to like 7. I was like, oh shit! I was jumping on my seat. I was like, oh my god, the Knicks are gonna come back. Like they're actually gonna do this shit. And then they cut it to 4, and I was like, yeah, no, it's GG's. Like the Spurs, no. Once the Spurs let it, the lead get cut down to like 4 before they called the timeout. Like I don't know we'll get to Mitch Johnson and his inability to coach down the stretch in a little bit, but my God, they cut it to 4. The momentum shifted so much in the Knicks' way that it was just too much for the Spurs to overcome. And granted, I give the Spurs a little bit of credit in this regard. When the Knicks did cut it down to 4, De'Aaron Fox hit a huge three to make it back to 7. And then, as the Knicks kept scoring, the Spurs also, they didn't fold completely. Like, yes, they did fold at the end, like, and there's no excuse. But, like, there were a couple baskets where Vic hit a mid-range shot to put it back to 7. De'Aaron Fox hit that 3. Stephon Castle, he was just doing things at the free throw line. He was really clutch. And so the Spurs did try to rally themselves, back into, extending this lead, but it just didn't matter because the momentum shifted way in favor of the Knicks that whatever the Spurs did, it just literally just didn't matter. And so, yes, this is the greatest comeback of all time in finals history, in Knicks history, whatever history of basketball you want to look to. This is the greatest comeback. And it's crazy because I thought that the game 1 against Cleveland when they were down 22 with 7 minutes left, I thought that comeback was a once in a, not a lifetime thing, but it was, it was one of those comebacks that you won't see for another like 10 to 15 years. And nope, the Knicks did it in the next 10 to 15 days. And the Knicks' grit is something that you cannot underestimate. And the fact that they were down 29 in this game, granted, it was at home, so like as you come back, the crowd is going to be right behind you, so it's kind of easier for that momentum and for you to get a feel of the game again. So if the Knicks were down in game 5 to 29, I'd be a little bit concerned, but I wouldn't be like, oh my God, this game's over. You know why? Because the Knicks literally just did it. So there's no reason for me to believe whatever lead that the Spurs have, the Knicks can't overcome. And you don't want to play with your food, obviously. You want to win in game 5. And so being down 29 is not ideal because you'd have to expend so much energy just to even make it interesting. And while there are 2 days of rest in between every game now because they're traveling back and forth, you just don't want to put yourself in a position to, not win the championship. So that was a crazy game. I give credit to the Knicks bench, specifically Jose Alvarado. I'll get to him a little bit later in one of my segments. But Mike Brown, man, he coached his ass off this game. As soon as Towns picked up those 2 fouls, he recognized that he needed to dig deeper into his bench. You even saw Jeremy Sohan playing. You saw Huck Porty playing because Mitchell Robinson can't play more than 5 to 6 minute spurts. And Huck Porty did his job. He just he picked up the fouls that he was supposed to pick up. He bought time for Mitchell Robinson to come back in, and then eventually Towns came back in, and that's when they made their run. And Towns didn't even pick up, I don't even think he picked up a foul in the second half, or maybe he might have picked up 1, and he might have ended the game with like 4 or 5 fouls, but, he was great in the second half. And even Clarkson in his little, 2-minute, 3-minute stretch, he had a couple layups, and he just brought the energy for the Knicks to come back. And this is something that the Knicks bench has done all series, and all playoffs, where it's always a different guy's night. It's always, a different guy that brings the energy. In that game 1 against Cleveland when they came back, it was Shamet. He was the guy off the bench that brought energy. The Knicks benched Josh Hart. And, Shamit came in, hit some huge threes, pretty much locked up Donovan Mitchell for the rest of that game. I think Donovan Mitchell went scoreless in the fourth and in overtime. And it's always, yeah, like one game it's McBride. When OG goes down, it's McBride who hits 4 threes in the first quarter against Philly in game four. And then this game, it's Jose Alvarado. The Knicks just needed another ball handler out there, someone who could touch the paint. And McBride and Shamit were just not that good this entire game. And so it makes sense why you'd go to Jose. And even the threes that Jose was putting up, he was hitting. And so when he hits those, it's like, for the other team, it's like, GG's, like, what do you do? Because we all know Jose is going to get to that paint and he's going to, drive and kick. And he's one of those players where he knows how to put the ball in the right spots for shooters. Now, we saw Mikal Bridges, drive and kick a lot. And I don't think that aspect of like driving and kicking is underrated. Knowing how to put the ball in, someone in the shooter's hands. Pause. But yeah, I mean, it was just a great game from Jose Alvarado, and he is undersized. So on defense, it was like, the Spurs guard's a little bigger, but he's like one of those pesky defenders, and he shows that grit and intensity, and he plays with his emotion in a positive way. Kat said this in one of the, interviews. He said that, a lot of players play with their emotions, but to their detriment. But Jose plays with his emotions to his advantage, and you could see that the entire game. So I wanted to give them credit. And then obviously the title of this episode, OG, motherfucking Anunoby. He is, someone that, the Knicks, when they give him that extension, the media and even Knicks fans were like, $40 million for OG seems like a lot, Like, when OG, was due for an extension, I was thinking more in the ballpark of like 33 to 37. But like 42 to 45 million dollars for OG Anunoby seemed like a lot at the time. And granted, he was still awesome at the time. He was still like a top 5, like, wing defender and small forward and two-way player. But like, for him to do this on this stage is kind of crazy, especially since he already has a ring, so he knows what that atmosphere looks like. Granted, he didn't play during that championship run, and God knows if he played during that run, the Warriors might have lost in 5, low-key. But he's here now. He's on our team. He hit the game-winning tip-in. It's just the amount of shots he was just hitting. Like, he hit like 7 threes. It looked like every single three he was putting up, he was making. Slashing, dunking, defense on Fox, especially late game when he chased down Fox, which I'll get to De'Aaron Fox a little bit later too. That was just a bonehead play. But he was just incredible. And he was incredible in game 3. He had 28. He kept us in the game when the Knicks it looked like the Spurs were going to run away with that game. He kept us in it. And that's honestly what he's been doing this entire postseason, excluding the 2 games he didn't play in Philly. He is one of those guys where he has that no-quit mentality. And, he gets us, back into games. He hits huge threes, huge dunks. Even 2 games in San Antonio, he just dunked. He just like dunked on Vic, and he's not scared of Vic, which is also another crazy thing. Like, he's not scared of Vic at all. He'll yam it on him. He'll try to lay it up on him. He'll slash. And he even did that last game too. I think he was cutting when the Knicks were on a little fast break. He was cutting and he just yammed it right over Vic. And he's just been special. And the Finals MVP, it's now questionable of whether it should go to him or Brunson. Obviously, like, I'd say like 65 to 70% it'll go Brunson's way. But like that 30 to 40%, you'd have to think about OG Anunoby because he's been the most consistent player this entire series. while he hasn't probably been the best player, he's definitely been the most consistent player. And he's averaging like 23 on crazy efficiency. He's shooting like 58% from the field, 55% from three, 80 something to 90 something from the free throw line. And it's just like, if you're the Spurs, like, you just got to clap your hands like this. I don't think they're scouting, like, obviously you're scouting for Anunoby because he's still gonna slash, he's still gonna hit threes. You know he's a great 3 and D player, but the Spurs are finding out he's not a 3 and D player anymore. He's a star. He is a star. He does not just hit threes. He does not just lock you up on defense. His offensive game we're seeing is just on a whole nother level, which is what the Knicks need in a series like this, when Brunson and Cat to some extent are being, you know, not limited on offense, but the Spurs are making it really tough, and you really need that third to fourth guy. And the third guy is Anunoby, and the fourth guy is always someone different, whether it's Josh Hart in game 3 with his 16 points, 4 threes. In game 2, it was Shamit? No. I don't remember who it was in game 2. But nonetheless, OG, that tip in is top 3 in NBA Finals history for sure. And it's definitely number 1 in Knicks history as far as greatest shots and greatest moments. And the crowd just went absolutely nuts. And yeah, another talking point for this game. And Wemby, I warned you. I told you that if you put your hands on somebody else, if you were throwing around those elbows, that you would find consequences. And you did it again. You elbowed Cat. And you need to stop elbowing people, because now you're 1 game away from suspension. And if you get suspended, your team is going to lose the series. And it's going to be your fault. Granted, some of these games are already your fault, so getting suspended for a game would not look good on you. Stop throwing around those elbows. Stop being, just because the Knicks are physical with you. That's what every team is going to do for the next 10 to 15 years. You need to just man up. You need to stop training with the monks and actually get stronger and go to the weight room. And those elbows need to stop flailing around, because you will get in trouble. You are the league's golden boy, but if you keep doing this, the league will disown you. I will disown you. The Knicks fans will disown you. Granted, they already did when they threw eggs at your head. It'll be much worse if you elbow somebody else. So I'm warning you, again, don't do it. Just play through the physicality. Tell your coach that, defending yourself is not ideal in this situation. You just need to play through it. Got it? Good. Yes, Wemby does need to be stopped. And yes, he is 1 flagrant away from being suspended, so that works into the Knicks' advantage. They can be as physical as they want with him. They can grab his jersey if they want, because you just want to, like he said in Game 4, he's in Mitchell Robinson's head. Well, now we're in his head, because he's now going to think twice about every time the Knicks, rough him up. He's going to be like, oh, wait, I can't do that because I might cost my team the series by being suspended a game. And he will be suspended. Like that, there's no no, the league might review, and no. If he gets another flagrant, he's gone. Like that is a rule that is implemented for the longest time. If you get 4 flagrant points, which he already has 3, the flagrant 2 against Naz Reid, that's 2 points, and then the flagrant 1 from last game, so that's 3. So if he has 1 more, he's gone. So he needs to watch out. The referees could not make it more obvious that they want this game to go 7. From game 3, the officiating was trash, to this game where Alvarado, went up for a floater, didn't call a goaltending. 2 fouls on Cat were bogus when they said he was hooking Wemby, when Wemby was clearly grabbing him first. And you couldn't even see Towns hook, because Wemby had his literal 8-foot arm wrapped around Cat. And yeah, you just could not like the calls that they were missing, you just could not like convince me that they weren't trying to make this game go 7 games. And I usually don't really complain about the refs. Like, yeah, I'll be mad and whatever, but like as far as like the outcome of games and series as a whole, I'm like, these calls don't really matter because the team ended up, losing anyway, and that's what happened in game 4. The refs first half really really horrible, but they didn't determine the outcome of the game. Even in the end, when Steph Castle was driving baseline and apparently he was out of bounds, the last 2 minute report said that he wasn't out of bounds and that Hart should have been called for a foul, which even that call I disagree because Castle literally elbowed him in the chin and knocked him off of his spot. So if anything, that should have been an offensive foul on Castle. But nonetheless, they said he didn't step out of bounds. And yes, that is a rough call, but it didn't determine the outcome of the game. The Spurs still blew a 29-point lead. Fox was still being dumb at the end. So no, that call did not determine the game, and the refs didn't really determine this game. I felt like, honestly, with how much the Spurs were, given help from the refs, and they're still down 3-1, it makes me question, you know, like the refs and their involvement in the game because initially game 2 it was really bad, especially when OG got fouled on that corner 3 and the Knicks literally had to challenge for that to be called, which is insane. Um, but yeah, there were a lot of calls in game 2 that were really bad too, and it's like, god damn, they're trying to give the Spurs this series. They're trying to make this series interesting because if you think about it, the league is making way too much money off of this series, especially with them, the games being in Madison Square Garden, where the ticket prices are absolutely insane. The viewership is insane. I think Game 4 had 3 billion views, like like concurrently. Which, if you think about it, that is almost half of the entire Earth's population watching one singular game. Now, granted, that's not the way that works. I think it's people coming back to the game or people coming in and out, so it doesn't count one person individually. I think it just counts how many times a person has, watched the game. So, but even then, you add all those up, that's still almost half the world's population watching one singular game. And granted, if you spent $10,000 on this game, you you got your money's worth for sure. Like, I at first I was like, damn, these people spent like 20 bands on a game for the Knicks to get blown out and for them to get embarrassed on their home floor. And I would have been like, yeah, I fucked up. You know, I I spent 20 G's and the Knicks can't even win on their home floor. Yeah, that's rent for the next like 5 months. But nah, that 20 G's, those 20 bands were so fucking worth it. And because of one man, OG Anunoby, you are my hero. And it's so crazy because after the game, even though in the moment he was, nonchalant, he cracked a little smile. And then in the post game conference, he said, yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited too. And, cracked a little smile again. But after the game, you go into the merch store or you see people go into the Knicks merch store and OG and Anunoby jerseys are sold out. I go online, OG stuff is sold out. There's this Funko Pop of the game winner of OG, Tippin, going for like $80. And I was like, is it worth it right now? Or should I wait and get a jersey or should I get both? And so I ended up waiting, and hopefully in like 2 or 3 weeks it'll be less. It'll probably be sold out by then, probably. But one thing is for sure, those jerseys will restock. So I will be getting an Anunoby jersey, definitely. Um, and one more talking point about this game, the Spurs and experience showed so much where even when they were up 22 and the Knicks cut it to like 16. The Spurs were stuck in their way and they kept jacking up threes. And it's like, you guys do know you have a 7'5" demigod you can give the ball to in the paint, right? You know that Dylan Harper can get to the paint and score a layup anytime he wants, right? You know that Champagne is not hitting his threes, so you don't really need to give him the ball on the 3-point line so often. The only person who was really consistent the entire game was Devin Vassell. He hit threes even when it looked like the Spurs were kind of out of it and they didn't look like, they wanted to even, play the rest of the game. And a lot of that is also Vic being gassed. Now, the conversation about Vic being gassed every single game is crazy to me because number one, he's 22. There's no way he should be this gassed. And also, the coach should be putting him in better positions during the regular season to where he's not playing 25 minutes a game and then all of a sudden the playoffs come and it's more physical and the intensity is dialed up to like 100%, and all of a sudden he's playing 44 minutes in a finals game and he can't even like play down the stretch. So next year, Miss Johnson definitely needs to play Vic 30 to 35 minutes a game in the regular season. Granted, they wanted to, manage his calf injury that he had, and even last year when he missed the last like 25 games of the season, with that blood clot, it's you just want to manage his injuries, and he's just a guy who will be injured at some point in the season. Like he won't play all 82 games, and so it makes sense. But if you're trying to make a finals run, you also at some point in the season you can't just play him 25 minutes. Like you're gonna have to ramp him up, and I think the Spurs did a bad job of doing that. And it also shows you during this series that Luke Cornett cannot play. They're saying that he's questionable for Game 5 with an illness. So if he can't play, I think if Vic has to play 45 minutes, I think the Spurs might be cooked because you can see at the end of the game he just looked gassed, and even at the free throw line when he missed those 2 free throws, he was trying to will the ball in. It didn't even look like his form was right. You could just see the sweat on his face. You could just see how gassed he was. And even on the final possession of the game, they didn't even look to give him the ball. And even the possession before that, when Brunson chucked up that 3, Vic came to double team, but you just knew that he wasn't going to get the rebound because he was so far out. And also, it just looked like he didn't even like jump or do anything. He was just expended. And yeah, I think he's going to have to ramp up more. Now they do have 2 days of rest, so we'll see what Vic we're gonna get in Game 5. But I don't know, man. Their experience showed in 3 of the 4 games where they Kenny Atkinson said that analytically the Cavs should be up 2-0 or 2-1 or whatever. Literally, like analytically, the Spurs should be up 3-1. Like you can actually look at like points of the game and the analytics and the data, and it shows that the Spurs should be up 3-1. If you take away 3-4 bonehead plays, the Knicks should be down 3-1. But the Knicks just show that they have more experience. Brunson is the leader that we need for a championship team, and the Spurs are just throwing around the leader like they don't know who it is. Like last couple in like post game interviews or even like pre-game interviews, they were asking, "Oh, who's the leader?" And some people said it's Vic, some people said it's Castle, and Fox is sitting there. He's like, guys, I am the 27-year-old vet, right? I should be the leader." Well, yeah, you are the 27-year-old vet, but you also cost him the game, and it's so funny. It's so funny that this fan, I don't even know if he was a fan or not, but because true fans wouldn't do this, but he started a GoFundMe to buy out De'Aaron Fox's contract, which was really hilarious. And even people were calling him terrorists, calling him to get traded, which is insane. I personally don't think the Spurs should trade Fox unless you're gonna get someone that's better than him. Which, if I were, I was thinking about this after the Cavs series. If I'm Cleveland, a Donovan Mitchell, De'Aaron Fox swap, but also that just doesn't really make sense for on the Cavs perspective. But on the Spurs perspective, it kind of makes sense because Donovan Mitchell's better than De'Aaron Fox, and you bought in De'Aaron Fox to really steady the ship and to give another scoring look when Vic is expending so much energy on defense. And so a duo of Donovan Mitchell and Victor Wembanyama would be special, but also you're running into the same dilemma of the three guards. So that kind of ish makes sense, but not really. And any trade that you make for, De'Aaron Fox, it's like, does that really make you better? You might as well just keep De'Aaron Fox, run it back, get him healthy for next year because he clearly isn't healthy. You see it. He doesn't even want to attack the paint anymore. That ankle is really bothering him. And on his threes, all his threes look short. And when he does make them, he makes like one out of like 6 threes. And so, yeah, Spurs inexperience definitely showed in Game 5. And so now we're going to talk about the preview of Game 5. Will the Knicks, close this out? Is this series over? And I believe so. Throw out my Knicks fandom aside, the Knicks have shown that they literally just cannot be beaten when it comes down to the zeros on the clock. Knicks will not stop fighting until the buzzer sounds. And that's scary for the Spurs because the Spurs could come out rolling in 5. They could look like they put the game 4 past them, not even thinking about that blown lead. They're moving on to one game at a time. And it's like the Knicks will still fight. Like, I saw a comment on a YouTube video where a fan was saying that the Knicks should have benched their players in game, or if the Knicks go down by like 29 again in Game 5, that they should bench their players and get ready for Game 6. And that is, for that fan, that is the most idiotic statement I've ever heard from a fan in my life. The Knicks are not benching anybody in the finals. They are not giving up on a game in the finals, especially when they are 3-1. And do you not know there are 2 days rest in between games? So that whole rest up for next game is stupid. And you're also making that comment literally the day after the Knicks were down 29 in a game and they could have benched their players and get ready for Game 5. So for you to say that you just don't watch ball, you're stupid, you just wanted to, rage bait in the comments, as all comments on, social media do, and you just need to be called out for that stupid, idiotic ass comment. The Knicks are not benching anybody. Fuck you mean? No. Just no. Okay. Now we address that comment. Is the series over? Yes. The series is over. Like, whether the Knicks win in 5 or 6, the Spurs are not coming back from 3-1. Everyone wants to compare this to LeBron James coming back and, 10-year difference, and, Game 7 would be on the same exact day that Game 7 was in 2016. Do the Spurs have Kyrie Irving? Do the Spurs have LeBron James? Do the Spurs have Tyronn Lue? Because Mitch Johnson is not Tyronn Lue. Victor Wembanyama is not LeBron James. De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper are not Kyrie Irving. As good as Castle and Harper are, they are not Kyrie Irving. Let's just stop this narrative right now. They are not coming back down 3-1. The Warrior, also, that situation is just so much different. Like, when the Warriors were up 3-1, first of all, they had won 2 games at home. The Spurs did not win 2 games at home. The Warriors were 7-3-9. the Knicks are not 73-9, so they're not this all-time great team. And the um Draymond Green got suspended for Game 5, so that really threw off the whole like rhythm of the series. And even then, in Game 7, he was like the best player on the floor, arguably. But yeah, these situations are just completely different. You cannot compare them. And we just need to stop that narrative right now. The Spurs are not the 2016 Cavs. Let's just end that right now. But the Knicks, in order to win this series, though, to really put the Spurs away, they need to start well from one game. The first quarter of every single game in this series, they're down by 10, 12 points, and it's kind of getting ridiculous because after every game they're like 0-0 mentality. We got to come out desperate. And in the first quarters, the Knicks do not look like the more desperate team. And they keep preaching that, desperation. And it's like, can you actually like show the desperation for the first quarter? Can you show that in an elimination game that you are the more desperate team than the Spurs? Can you show the Game 6 Knicks that we saw? Can you show the Game 4 Philly that we saw? Can you show the Game 4 against the Cavs that we saw? Can you just put the Spurs away? Can Brunson come into the first quarter and score like 15 points and really put the Spurs in a position to where they're actually, nervous and they're like, oh shit, we actually might go home this game? Can you do that? Can you start off the game well, please, for one game? Can you not give us heart attacks? Can this game not be close? Like, ultimately, the game will probably end up being close, but my God, we don't need for the game to be close and to risk anyone, knock on wood, getting injured or anything like that, or putting yourself in a position to not just close out the Spurs and end this series, please. Like, everyone in New York is saying Knicks in 5, and I believe it. Everyone believes it. The Knicks believe it. Hell, even the Spurs believe it in some way because Mitch Johnson was saying, well, I gotta wake up and coach the next game anyway, so no harping, no larping, no harping on game 4. So even he knows that the series is over, and he's like, well, I still gotta do my job for one more game. Might as well, right? Please, just start off the game well. Start off the game guns blazing, please. Mikal Bridges, we need you, boy. Like, we don't need the Atlanta Hawks, Mikal Bridges. We need the Philadelphia and the Cavaliers, Mikal Bridges. Please, 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 please. And like I said earlier, what version of Wemby will we get? I think we'll get a good version of Wemby. I don't think Wemby will go out, sad and go out, trying to do too much and costing their team the game. I think, honestly, I believe Wemby will probably try to get 40 this game just to show that they're really past game 5 or 4. But I just don't think it'll be enough. I think the Knicks will come out with that desperation. I mean, I'm literally begging them to at this point. Come out with the desperation. Cat will not pick up too early fouls. Please, 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 please do not pick up too early fouls. Oh my God. It's not like I'm literally like 7 hours away from the game when I'm recording this, and I'm as nervous as I can be. And I'm not nervous that, the Knicks are going to lose a series because I'm just nervous because the Knicks have a chance to win a championship. Like put that into perspective. The Knicks have a chance to win an NBA title in the same era as when LeBron James is playing, Steph Curry is playing, Kevin Durant is playing, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is playing, Victor Wembanyama is playing, Nikola Jokic is playing, Giannis Antetokounmpo is playing, Anthony Edwards is playing, Cade Cunningham is playing. Well, Knicks have better players. I'm just talking about players that are better than Jalen Brunson. Teams that are arguably should be better than the Knicks. And the Knicks are sitting here with the title. I remember preseason when they got Mike Brown. I was like, Mike Brown is a good coach, obviously. I mean, he's showing it now. He's a great coach. But at the time, I was like, when they fired Tibbs, I thought, yes, that was the right move because he never played the bench. But also, like, what route were the Knicks going to go? And it just looked like the Knicks were desperate after, they interviewed like 8 coaches and it didn't seem like they knew which direction they were going to go in. Hell, Jason Kidd was even interviewed. And I was like, Jason Kidd did take the Mavs to the finals, but is he that coach that's going to put us over the top? And apparently Mike Brown is that coach. So, credit to him. Um, and oh my God, what the heck? Breaking news: Cavs James Harden is arrested, charged with misdemeanor unlawful carrying a weapon. What the hell? What is he, John Morant? Okay. He's really taken that Cavs Eastern Conference Finals loss to a whole different level. That's crazy. Unlawful carrying of a Jesus Christ. Oh my God, that is so bad. That is really bad. There's like no like get out of jail free card with that. There's no like explanation for that. Oh my God. Wow, that just threw off. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, preseason. This is like kind of unrelated, but also related. I remember the Nuggets, Aaron Gordon interview. He was like, they dealt with a lot of injuries last year, and they were going to be the last one standing. And I kind of believed him because I just knew that Aaron Gordon on the mission was going to be a monster. Granted, he was a monster early on in the season. He literally on opening night against the Warriors, he scored 50, and I was like, oh shit, the Nuggets are actually going to win the title. And well, we all know how that happened. Aaron Gordon didn't play obviously in the first round much, and they got destroyed by the Timberwolves. And I say this to say that everyone thought OKC was going to win the title. Everyone thought the Knicks and the Cavs were going to destroy the East, which one of those teams did, and it ended up being us. It was going to be the Knicks conference to win, but we all knew once they got to the West, it was going to be GG's. The Knicks had no chance. Nuggets, OKC, even middle of the season, and then became Spurs. And, whoever come out the West was going to win the finals. And Knicks had no chance. Western Conference Finals was the real finals. They were saying even when San Antonio went up against OKC. And I was like, y'all need to chill on that because last year we said the same exact thing and the Pacers took the Thunder to 7 games and arguably could have won it if Tyrese Halliburton didn't get hurt. So we need to chill on the finals is just going to automatically be given to the West team, and we're seeing it again. And it's mind-boggling because yes, the Spurs technically beat the best team in the NBA but they did not have AJ Mitchell or J Dub, so that series could have swung either way, and it still could have swung either way because the Spurs won in Game 7. But the way the Knicks were playing, the way the Knicks were dominating teams, like there was no way you couldn't think it could translate to the NBA Finals and the way that they're playing, and just the mentality of this team that they were not gonna, go down in 5 games to the San Antonio team. And the whole media was, saying that they give the Knicks a shot. No, motherfuckers, the Knicks are the shot. They are the champions. They are the team that should be favorite. Even in Game 5, the Spurs are 5.5 favorites. Fuck that. Like, why? Like, genuinely, like, I don't even understand. Like, I don't understand why they're favorites. Like, there's no explanation. That yes, the Spurs are at home, but they also lost 2 home games to this same Knicks team. The Spurs just lost a 29-point lead in a game. The Spurs are down 3 games to 1. There is no possible reason the Spurs should be favorite in this game, and we'll just show them. People will bet on the Spurs, uh, and obviously the smart people will bet on the Knicks, and they will win. And yeah, it's just upsetting to why the Spurs are favorites in this game. Like, I genuinely don't know why they're favorites, but it's all good. Knicks are gonna show them tonight that they're the better team. Castle was saying after Game 3, we're gonna win. We're gonna win the next three. Yeah, good luck with that, buddy. Because you did not win the next three. You actually lost the game after you said that. Wemby's taunting. I'm in your head, boy. Well, Mitchell Robinson was in your head so much that you stole his ability to make free throws at the end of the game. So how did that work out for you? And to know that the Knicks can literally rough up Wemby as much as they want is really what will determine this series, because, like I said earlier, numerous times, Wemby picks up you know, that flagrant foul, he's gone. Game 6, he's gone. Even if, God forbid, this goes to Game 6, and if he gets flagrant in Game 6, he's gone for Game 7, and that would be devastating for the Spurs. So, yeah, no, Wemby is gonna be, roughed up on pretty much for 48 minutes, and we're gonna see how he responds. As far as what conversations can be had if the Knicks win in 5, greatest run in Knicks history, greatest run in NBA history, considering the 29-point lead, the 29-point comeback in the finals, and the 13 straight wins, and the winning by 60 against Atlanta, and the average point differential leading up to the finals being like almost 20 points per game. Greatest run, arguably, in NBA history, like finals, like playoff run. Greatest Knicks team in NBA history. Um, Brunson would be a top 2 or 3 Knick of all time. OG, top 5 Knick of all time. Cat, Hall of Famer. Top 15, 10, like top 13 to 15 centers of all time, arguably. Um, OG, when we get to rankings, when I rank small forwards, he will be top 5 for sure, no question about it. Now, I'm curious to see what those like rankings and when I rank teams or players and positions, because some players play out of position in terms of, like, Devin Booker for the last like 2 or 3 years was point guard, but we all know he's not a point guard. OG this year technically played power forward, if you think about it. Even though they list Josh Hart as a power forward, I just don't think Josh Hart is a power forward personally. So I think I'm gonna do my rankings based off what I view the player as, and not what Basketball Reference views the players as, because at the end of the day, it is my ranking, so I get to choose. And also, like I said, a lot of players on Basketball Reference, they're not those positions. Like, they like some at some points LeBron was playing center. Like, that's just not his position. I'm sorry. And yes, LeBron can play all 5 positions. Glaze, 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 LeBron, LeBron, LeBron. But, I'm not gonna go off of that. I'm gonna go off of what I view the players as. So Josh Hart will not be a top 10 power forward, because he's not a power forward in my rankings. But those rankings will be super fun, because after this run, after this playoffs and this Knicks run, obviously the Spurs run changes a lot in these rankings, and a lot of teams in general. Like, these rankings will change for a lot of players based on the runs that they had in this playoffs alone. So I'm super duper excited for that, and you guys should be it too, because these the rankings are always interesting, because they can cause a lot of controversy. People can agree with all of my rankings, people can disagree with all of them. There are some players on my rankings where it'd be like, how the hell did he make it top 10? And I'm going to explain all the criteria when I do my rankings, which would be in a couple episodes from now. Obviously, when the finals are over, I'll do my rankings, and Yeah, I'll give out my criteria for the rankings because a lot of people have different criteria, and so I just want to make it my own unique um, ranking system, and I'll have some fun with it too. So you guys should definitely tune in for that. Um, and yeah, I think that's all the basketball talk for this finals, at least as far as the game 4 and game 5 preview. And so I'm debuting a new segment. It's not really a segment, more of like I I want to give an X factor for the week, and every week I'll give a different X factor. It could be the same player for all I know. Um, but it's a player that has gone underrated in the week, but has helped their team play in the best position possible for a win, and a player that can be that X factor in a team where it's like you don't really have a scouting report for him, but him on the court is you're winning those minutes, and you could see it with both the statistics and the eye test. The eye test is important because advanced stats will always tell you one thing. Like, for example, I would assume it was one of those players where the advanced stats will tell you that he's not really a good player, and that the Wolves shouldn't be playing him, and that he doesn't contribute to winning. But the eye test tells you so differently that it's like you don't even look at the advanced stats for that. You just disregard the advanced stats. The advanced stats do not work in his favor. And so, with all that said, my X factor for this week is Jose Alvarado. And there's a reason why. The reason why is because the Spurs are going to load up on Jalen Brunson every time they get. They're going to play him as physical as they can. And outside of Jalen Brunson, the Knicks do not have another ball handler in their starting lineup that can put pressure on the rim, that can, have Brunson playing off the ball, and, you know, cannot distribute the ball like Jalen Brunson does. And so Jose Alvarado is one of those players that can touch the paint, as we saw numerous times in this series and throughout the playoffs. He is a guy that is not a liability on defense, so he can play alongside Brunson. And he hits shots, which is super duper important. He can pass the ball. He's a natural point guard. He will look to get others involved before he gets his, which is great because when he's playing with Brunson, that means Brunson has less of a challenge offensively against this like great Spurs defense. And you're going to need that for the rest of the series, honestly. I think Mike Brown found something. And so he is the X factor of the week, for sure. And he's one of those guys, like everyone says, stay ready. You stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And, you see him on the bench during these games when the Knicks make their runs. He's like the first guy who'll jump up and down. He'll go crazy. And then when he gets put in the game, it's like he's a whole different like the energy's still there, but like he's a whole different person. He's locked in. He's not jumping up and down. Even when Brunson hit that 3 over Wemby in game 4, Jose Alvarado was standing like on the middle of the court. He was like, no, game's not over. Cannot get excited. And you just love that about a player. He's the most New York out of all the Knicks. Like, he obviously grew up in Brooklyn, and him and Champagne are rivals. They went to Brooklyn high schools. And you could just see the grit, the intensity, the blue collar in him. And as a Knicks fan, I hope we re-sign him because he will be an X factor for sure in the future, whatever team he goes on. Hopefully he stays with the Knicks, obviously, but he's just a dog. And he's one of those players that is going to be really hard to replace coming off the bench. So, Leon Rose, please resign Jose Alvarado. Please resign Landry Shamet. Please resign Mitchell Robinson. Please resign Jordan Clarkson. Keep this team together, please, at all costs. If you have to go into the second apron for it, I don't really care. Just do it. Bring this team back. A lot of these, in this parity era, teams are afraid to bring back the same exact team because of, second apron stuff, and um they want to make moves to make the team better. Don't If you're the Knicks, don't do that. The Nuggets did that with MPJ. The Celtics did that by getting rid of Drew Holiday and Porzingis. The Thunder ran back the same team, they had a chance to win again. So they're like the only team in the last like 5 or 6 years that actually ran it back. I think even the Bucks didn't run it back with Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. So if you're the Knicks, run it back. We do this again next year. There's no guarantees that the East will, be so overwhelmingly great that the Knicks can't have a chance. It really just depends on what the Celtics do and what the Pistons do, because those are the only two teams that can really challenge the Knicks in the East, as we saw. So yeah, run it back. Bring back Jose Alvarado. He's a dog. He basically helped win us that game, and he will help us win games in the future. So please, I'm begging you, bring back Jose Alvarado. Now, that is one segment that I want to bring. There are a lot of other segments that I want to bring in the future that don't really apply to this episode, because we're talking about NBA Finals and it's literally like the last games of the season. And so I think I want to debut those segments next season. So be on the lookout for those. But another segment I wanted to bring was the advanced stat of the week. Now, this segment will eventually die because of basketball won't be played after like next week until like October. And so in order to have an advanced stat of the week, basketball has to actually be played. And another thing, I wanted to bring this up too. WNBA talk will happen. So actually, some of these segments will be debuting, not for the NBA, but for WNBA. I actually watch WNBA basketball, believe it or not. And I just want to bring that to the show, because at the end of the day, this is a basketball, show. So WNBA talk will be happening soon. Be on the lookout for that as well. It'll probably happen after the finals, where I can actually focus on the W a little bit more. So, getting back to the advanced stat of the week. The advanced stat of the week, for this finals, is offensive and defensive rating. Now, this is one of those stats that is like kind of obvious, and it's like not one of those obscure stats. But these stats have basically determined this finals, and specifically players. OG Anunoby. We all knew his defensive rating was going to be insane. He's the best two-way player in the league. He's going to lock up. When he's on the floor, the defense of the Knicks is going to be absolutely insane. The offensive rating is what stands out. Last game specifically, when he was on the court, the Knicks' offensive rating was 172. I repeat, 172. His defensive rating, 118. Now, why do I bring that up? That is almost a 60-point difference. So when he is on the floor, they are outscoring the Spurs by 60. And they only won by 1 point. Now, granted, they outscored the Spurs by 30 in the second half. But an offensive rating of 1... Do you guys know how ridiculous that is? To have an offensive rating of 172? To know that when OG Anunoby is on the court, they outscore the Spurs by 60 points? Let that sink in for a second. Now I'll throw out another name. Karl-Anthony Towns. We all knew his offensive rating was going to be great. Last game, his defensive rating was pretty much on par with Anunoby. It was like a 123, 124, which is only 6 points worse than OG Anunoby. But the fact that we all knew his offensive rating was going to be off the charts, because he's one of the most skilled big men we have in this league. The eye test shows it too. Like, the eye test shows a lot of these stats too. because OG doesn't miss shots. When he's on the floor, his offense is something that the Knicks can lean towards when Brunson is, shooting inefficient. Um, Cat, the eye test, the defense. You can see he may not be the rim protector that the Knicks want, but he one-on-one defense, he is straight up just locking down OG or not OG. Wow, he is locking down Victor Wembanyama. He is straight up putting Vic in hell, and yeah, absolutely insane. And that's literally what's determining this series is him locking down Vic and OG scoring that the way he is. Those are two factors that pretty much determine why the Knicks are up 3-1 when analytically the Spurs should be up 3-1 like I said earlier. With Kenny Atkinson is a dumbass, so don't even pay attention to him saying that. But if Midge Johnson on the podium and said that, nobody would flame him. Yes, well, actually no, people would still flame him because he is one of the reasons why they're not up 3-1. But you could look at the analytics and actually convince yourself, if you're a Spurs fan or a Spurs analyst, that yeah, the Spurs should be up 3-1. But if you look at offensive defensive rating, it shows why the Knicks are up 3-1. And lastly, I'll throw another name out there. Name I already mentioned previously in the previous segment, Jose Alvarado. His defensive rating is going to be good because he's not a defensive liability when he's on the court, which is why it makes him and Brunson playing together that much more important. His offensive rating is crazy, and you could see that because he's such a good passer, because he can put 2 feet in the paint and, finish at the rim or kick it out. His offensive rating next to Brunson is going to be absolutely insane. And I think his offensive rating is like 159 last time I checked for last game. And so that's pretty much on par with Anunoby, meaning that when he puts up shots, he doesn't miss. I think Alvarado had a true shooting percentage of 100% too, if I'm not mistaken, which literally means every shot he was throwing up, he was making. But yeah, those are just 3 names. I could go down the list of Knicks players where offensive rating and defensive rating is insane, but those are just the 3 names that stuck out because of the different factors in their game that you didn't think would be relevant to this degree, with OG's offense, Cat's defense, and Alvarado's overall play from a guy who has barely played this entire playoffs to being one of the, I'd say, like 7th to 8th best players on the Knicks. So, yeah, those are some stats for you. I'll throw out at you. Now, this is going to be the end of the episode. I don't really have much more to talk about. So, in about 7 hours, the Knicks will tip off for Game 5, and we will win. My friend, who I let down last game, who I told not to bet on the Knicks, is going to bet on the Knicks. And I told him, he said, if the Knicks lose, he's going to blame it on me. And I said, fair enough. I told you Knicks were going to win. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Knicks in 5.